What is the deadliest tank battle ever? It's hard to say for sure, but there are a few contenders. At No. 1, we have the Battle of Prokhorovka from July 1943. This was during the Battle of Kursk in the summer of 1943, fought between German and Soviet forces. The battle began with the Germans attacking and pushing the Soviets back. But then the Soviets regrouped and counterattacked. Both sides were dug into defensive positions with anti-tank guns and mines, so neither side could really make any gains. By the end of the day, the Germans had lost 28 tanks, the Soviets 18. There were also a ton of casualties on both sides. And that's why the Battle of Prokhorovka is considered one of the deadliest tank battles in history. Next up, we have the Battle of Mogen David, fought between Israel and the combined armies of Egypt, Jordan, and Syria in October 1948. During the battle, Israeli forces pushed into Egyptian territory in order to relieve Israeli soldiers who were trapped by Egyptian forces. On October 16th, the Israeli forces came under heavy fire from Egyptian tanks and artillery. Despite being outnumbered, the Israelis held their ground and were eventually reinforced by more troops and tanks. By the end of the battle, the Israelis had managed to break through the enemy lines and relieve the trapped soldiers. The Egyptians had hoped to force the Israelis to retreat, but the battle ended up being a costly defeat for them. Out of 28 tanks committed to the battle, only 10 made it out alive, and those were mostly damaged. Most of the Egyptian tanks were destroyed by anti-tank mines or the Israeli artillery fire. The Israelis lost 7 tanks in the battle, so slightly fewer than the Egyptians. But the Egyptians suffered much greater losses in terms of personnel. In total, 182 Egyptian soldiers were killed and 439 wounded. The Israeli casualties were 54 dead and 148 wounded. The next deadly tank battle is the Battle of Arcourt, fought between the U.S. and German forces in September 1944 during the war in Europe. The U.S. wanted to push the Germans back across the Our River, but the Germans had set up strong defensive positions, including tanks. The Americans attacked in 2 waves. The first wave was made up of infantry and armor, while the second wave consisted of tanks and self-propelled guns. The first wave quickly ran into trouble as they were met with heavy resistance from the Germans. The Americans lost several vehicles and had to call in the second wave, but the Germans were prepared for this as well, and the second wave was also beaten back. Despite suffering heavy losses, the Americans did manage to advance a few hundred yards, but it wasn't worth the cost. In total, the Americans lost 46 tanks, 25 other armored vehicles, and 145 trucks. The Germans also lost a lot of equipment and vehicles, but their losses in terms of tanks were lower, around 22. Last up, we have the Battle of Abeli, fought between British and Italian forces in March 1941. This was part of the larger British invasion of Egypt and the Italian East African territories. The Italians had taken defensive positions in the mountains near the town of Abeli. The British attacked in an attempt to dislodge them, but they soon realized that the Italians were well entrenched. After several days of fighting, the British decided to bring in more tanks to break through the Italian lines. It has turned out to be a costly mistake, as many of the British tanks were destroyed by Italian artillery fire. In total, the British lost 33 tanks, while the Italians lost 15. The battle ended in an Italian victory, and the British had to retreat. So which of these tank battles was the deadliest? That would be the Battle of Prokhorovka, where the combined losses of both sides add up to 46 destroyed tanks. But if we were to look at losses on a per-side basis, then the Battle of Mogen David would take the cake with 18 tanks lost by the Egyptian army. How do you think this list stacked up? Did we miss any obvious ones? Let us know in the comments below.